When a dog dies, it loses all biological functions of its body. It stops moving, breathing, and sensing. Then we say it has lost consciousness. There is a fundamental difference between the state in which the dog was in before and after death, which we refer to as consciousness. Consciousness can only be experienced as an inner experience, so we can only assume the dog is conscious based on its external physical activity, but only it can know its own inner consciousness. Our common understanding of consciousness is that we are born as a soul or a self that learns and experiences the external world through its consciousness. The soul is the container of consciousness, and so when we die it floats free from the body, and all that remains is the physical form without the conscious energy that animates it. This idea is based on a dualistic worldview that we are separate from our surroundings, which within our body is our consciousness or soul, and outside is the physical world of matter. It is through consciousness that we are able to experience thoughts, feelings, and sensations that are perceived from the outer world, and by our actions, we shape the outer world to our liking for the good or for the bad. For a long time, I thought this dualistic worldview was true. It is how we are brought up as children, to recognize ourselves as separate individuals in a vast world, to know that we are distinct souls and broken by nature because we struggle for individual gain and personal well-being. We are indoctrinated into religion to tame the selfish instinct so that we are constantly being reminded to be mindful of others who, though separate, deserve our love and concern. We are also taught that there is an all-powerful God in heaven who created this wonderful universe around us and who is watching us all the time. If we act in a way that is kind towards our fellow man and follow his word, he will give our soul a pass into heaven when we die, but if we act unkindly and deny him, then he will condemn our soul to an eternal hell. I believed in this worldview and I was very comfortable with it because it answered many of the difficult questions I had about the world. What am I? What is my purpose? And what will happen to me after I die? But then I came across non-dualism from studying Eastern philosophy, and it turned my whole world upside down. Non-dualism, meaning not two, believes that there is no separation between the entities of the universe, and that includes ourselves, God. Everything is one and all is one. Consciousness is all there is, and all that we see as the world around us are different expressions of the one consciousness. Your consciousness therefore was not created at birth and will not vanish when you die. Rather, it will return to the universal consciousness it has always been, in the same way that a wave washes along the shore and recedes back to the ocean. There is no distinct unitary soul or self to which this consciousness is tied to be born or survive death. Rather, consciousness is the universal stream that connects everything, and the sense of the individual soul or self is just an illusion or maya. This way of looking at things changes our outlook on life because it means there are no physical objects in the external world. Our perception of form is also an illusion. The illusion makes us perceive ourselves as separate and God as separate, and therefore everything is always in conflict. We conflict with our fellow man when we wrong him. We conflict with nature when we exploit it. We conflict with ourselves when we do not live up to our expectations, and we conflict with God when we do not obey his commands. The world of dualism is therefore bound to cause so much pain and suffering arising from conflict, and ultimately lead to man's depression and despair. The non-dual worldview can resolve all these conflicts because it removes all the boundaries of separation between objects, and they are unified as one. Understanding this phenomenon cannot be achieved by thinking about it intellectually because thought is generally dualistic by nature, attaching labels and categories to things, but by understanding it experientially through deep meditation and inner reflection. If I am one with my fellow man, then I would not be capable of harming him because it would be equivalent to harming myself. If I were one with nature, I would be incapable of destroying the environment because I would be ultimately destroying myself. If I am one with my body-mind, I would not harm my body-mind because I would be harming myself. If I am one with God, then instead of being a beneficiary of God's divine grace, I am actually a partner in his divinity. I would therefore naturally act in ways that express his divine nature. The philosophy of non-dualism is perhaps the single most important philosophy that can save mankind from its destruction, but few people are willing to consider it because they are indoctrinated into the materialist and dualistic view of reality. Many wise sages and mystics have taught it for thousands of years and is slowly gaining Western interest and followers who are in search of spiritual awakening. The non-dual thinking is also supported by scientists because science has found that everything in the universe is connected all the way back to the Big Bang through quantum entanglement. Science also does not support the existence of a soul or a self because all the experiences of the mind can be described in terms of the physical states of the human brain. The sense of self is fragile and can be lost as a result of injuries to the brain. Science stops, however, at understanding how consciousness is generated by the brain, but does not see any evidence of it coming from a soul or self, but more likely existing fundamentally in all matter. That said, we know that non-dualism is both useful and enlightening, but mainstream religion also plays these roles, so how sure can we be that it's actually true? Is consciousness really universal, or is it just an idea created by ancient mystics to enforce a moral code among us? Perhaps if we could find proof of its truth, we could truly believe and put in the effort and work to connect with the vast cosmos through meditation and further study. But how can you prove something that encompasses everything when whatever you would use to prove it is already a part of it? If we accept the non-dual teachings only through faith, then how different are we from the dualists who accept theistic teachings by faith alone? How do we know that when we experience a mystical connection with the universe and everything around us, we are not merely hallucinating something that is not there and our consciousness has never really left our little body? But then again, a hallucination is all we can ever know, since all is consciousness. Following the non-dual way out of a leap of faith and seeing the positive impact it could have on your overall fulfillment and happiness could act as one proof of its truth. But there is one other way that could support its truth to some extent. People who have had near-death experiences always give varied stories about who they see when they reach the edge of death. Christians say Jesus, Muslims say Muhammad, while Hindus say Shiva. However, they all have a common experience in which they report a blissful harmony that they had and an intimate connection to everything. To them, it was not like they were awake and died, it was like they had always been sleeping and had finally awakened to the true reality. They report the experience they had on the other side feeling more real than this world, and they had feelings of universal awareness. It would be easy to dismiss these reports as mere dreams or hallucinations, but some NDE survivors have been found to know things they otherwise shouldn't have known. Like a child who knew he had an elder sister from a previous miscarriage he did not know about, or a man who knew what his physician was doing in the other room when he was supposedly unconscious. If their awareness truly goes back to its universal form, it would be no surprise that they would have knowledge of certain aspects of the universe that are beyond the individual senses. Perhaps one day we shall all wake up and realize we were living in God's dream, of which we are all God.